Well, we've gathered together for another important historic celebration. You know, the city of Falls Church and the settlement by the Europeans in this area actually goes back to the 17th century. And quite a lot has happened in this little community connected with the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. But one of the real golden eras of the village of Falls Church, and now the city of Falls Church, really was the Victorian era. And we're celebrating that again, as well as the oldest residence in the city of Falls Church. But all of this didn't happen by accident. Good things happen because citizens become involved and they work together. And this is a real public-private partnership where we had individuals. We had Midge, who was the property owner, and also one of the leaders of the Victorian Society. The Victorian Society was very much involved. The Historical Commission, and we'll hear from Rick Turman, longtime chair of the Historical Commission. The city was involved in assisting and participating in the effort. This is just a wonderful example of citizens working together for the common good. And the common good in this case is celebrating our past so we can learn from it and we can all have a better future as a result of celebrating our past. So I want to recognize first Rick Turman. As I said, Rick has done a huge amount of the research that has really documented the proud history of the city of Falls Church, and his research led to the substance of the sign, which we're going to shortly be unveiling.
The sign here marks a significant change from our previous signage here in town, in which we had some 20 signs in the old village part. Now we're out in what we used to call the countryside, where there was farming out here. And this was a isolated farm. Finally began to get more and more people. One of the chief owners here was Duncan, a man of the council, a mayor of the city for a while. And when I bring tourists through here, I always stop and point out the home. The effort here, I think, is that we're proceeding to try to bring the historic sites to the attention of the public. We hope they'll all come around and enjoy them here and learn something. Thank you very much. I want to hand this to Midge, who's the owner of this property.
When we're talking about ownership, I would like to state that I am extremely fortunate that I have a son and daughter-in-law who love the house as I do and who are now co-owners, and whose energy and ideas are building on what my parents and I started. So it's several generations of my family now that are involved in this house. So much of the beautiful gardens that you see are Terry's ideas, and we've got lots of plans for the future here. As a Victorian, we like to be able to raise money and make adjustments and additions to the city. And this year we thought that we would like to start the energy to complete the historic trail. And so we've started with the 2 Victorian houses. And of course, I'm very fortunate that one of them is mine. I'm a little embarrassed about that, but those are the 2 houses that needed signs, and we hope to inspire other people to do that. Thank you.
Well, you can see from the folks gathered here together that we take history very, very seriously, and we recognize what a wonderful tradition we have here in the city of Falls Church. And we have people not just from the city of Falls Church, but all over the region here to help us with this event today. So thank you all very, very much. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, all right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Very well done. Let me turn it over to Gus to read it for us.
Mount Hope consists of a portion of a 1.5-story frame farmhouse, circa 1831, joined to a 2.5-story Gothic Revival brick house, circa 1870, on half an acre of the original 216-acre farm. The 1831 wing is the oldest residential building left in Falls Church and was the earliest stop on the local mail route. The farm was bought in 1842 by Amsey Co., who named it Mount Hope and held meetings of the Presbyterian Church in the parlor. William Duncan acquired Mount Hope in 1869 and added the Gothic Revival wing in 1870. Duncan served as mayor of Falls Church 1881 through 1882 and lived in the house until he died in 1902. In 1984, Mount Hope was added to the National Register of Historic Places.
I think we're celebrating something very important here today. We're celebrating not only the past, but our contribution in passing that past on to the future.
We're standing in front of our oldest section of our home, Mount Hope. This was the farmhouse that was here during the Civil War, or the war between the states, as my daughter-in-law would like to call it, being a Virginian. It was owned by the Coe family from New York State, who happened to be Southern sympathizers, which is interesting. And when we bought the house in 1963, this portion looked particularly unattractive. It was covered with asbestos shingles. So we removed those and had the original wood siding remilled to match, and had the walls insulated in the new siding, which made an enormous difference back here. We also removed a very ugly oil drum, a 500-gallon oil drum, and had it buried, and were able to put back the chimney that you see on the right-hand side there, reopening the fireplaces in the rooms here. This is a 1.5-story house, and we think part of this house was demolished, but nobody has the actual records yet. The garden we're standing in is an herb garden, has about 70 different species of herbs, and it's in a more colonial formal pattern to mirror the very early Victorian and pre-Victorian part of our house. And it has a shingle roof that we put on, a cedar shake roof. We also covered the patio, which was here when we purchased the house. I do not think it was original, but it was concrete, and we have resurfaced it in brick to make it more attractive, blending into the newer wing of the house. The door you see behind me is the front door of the original house, and it was oriented to the Elsie Church Road. It was part of a farmhouse. The road today, South Oak, was not existent at that time. It was all part of the farm. Route 7, or the Leesburg Pike, was of course still here, would have been the main road close to this house.
We're standing in front of the newer wing here of Mount Hope. This was the front door as constructed by William Duncan, and at the time that was facing down to Route 7, and there were no houses between, of course, so that you had a grand view from the front of the house. Since the structures in between have been put up in later years, we now switched to using as our front door what was a door onto a side patio or a side porch. And so the house is sort of swung around from facing in 3 different directions over the years, depending on where the roads were at the time.
The Duncans purchased the property from Amzie Coe's heirs in 1869, and they had this house built in 1870. It's a 2.5-story brick Gothic revival style home. When this house was built, it was appraised for more than Gunston Hall. William A. Duncan and Susan Van Sant Duncan were very wealthy people. They were from the city of Alexandria. William A. Duncan, prior to coming to Falls Church, had served as U.S. Deputy Marshal for 4 years and was actually one of the people responsible for going and bringing Jefferson Davis to trial in Richmond. When he came to the city of Falls Church to live, and he built this property, the house property line ran all the way down to what is now Leesburg Pike. The carriage drive went all the way down and was lined with oak trees, which is why the street is now named Oak Street.
Just a few words about the restoration to date on this part of the house. The brick walls are 12 inches solid, lined inside with plaster, so they have not needed anything except minor repair and the addition of wallpapers. But the roof was in very bad shape when we purchased the house in the 60s, and we were able to restore it according to the earliest photographs with Buckingham slate and border lines and red flowers of red slate, just the way it looked in its early photographs.